P Diddy, 12,000 calls in 24 hours. A report in Breitbart.com explains a sexual abuse hotline for Sean Diddy Combs' accusers has reportedly received 12,000 calls in a 24-hour time span. Busby Law Firm's lead counsel, Tony Busby, who is already representing 120 accusers with allegations against Combs, his associates and other entities. When I made an announcement that I was going to pursue these cases, the floodgates really opened, Busby told Law and Crime in a recent interview. In about a 10-day period, we got 3,200 calls, Busby continued, adding that in the 24-hour time span following the press conference he held last week alongside the AVA Law Group, they received 12,000 calls. The law firms are now tasked with trying to sift through every one of these calls and make sure that we are identifying those who are victims and those who are witnesses and collect evidence, Busby explained. We have almost 100 people working on this task, he said. Busby added that the 120 accusers he is currently representing are claims that we can file right now against Sean Combs, threat to control, but we're trying to make sure that when we file the cases, and they're going to be filed on an individual basis, that we include every potentially liable party. Naturally, they're going to do this because it increases the possibility of bringing forth a settlement. It also increases the prominence of the lawsuit. And, of course, there is the aspect of holding those individuals to account. P Diddy, of course, is going to be the main defendant, but they're also going to be looking at organisations that could be said to have facilitated the abuse, that have stood by and done nothing, that there are other individuals who will be accused of also being complicit in the commission of the abuse, which of course is no doubt leading to some sphincter tightening going on amongst those who are infected with the Hollywood sickness. Busby explained, potentially liable parties means any entities or other individuals that either were involved, participated, facilitated, egged it on, provided the venue, benefited from it, profited from it, that sort of thing. So that's where we are now. We have 120 cases that we are preparing to file, and we're trying to sift through another 12,000 phone calls and contacts that we received in the last 24 hours. The volume of calls has been overwhelming, and it's been kind of shocking, he added. But when you put it in context that we're talking about alleged behaviour that occurred over 25 years with individuals that had parties, I mean, you can only imagine the amount of different types of parties that occurred. We're talking about album release parties. We're talking about the white parties you've heard about. After parties, after shows, just impromptu parties at hotels and clubs, Busby said. The attorney added that he believes the indictment and the arrest gave victims a little more comfort, that they had more safety and support to step forward. I think the fact that the federal government took action, the fact that there was an arrest and an indictment, the fact that bail was denied, I think now 3 times, gives people some courage to step forward, and then when they see that other people are stepping forward. Combs was arrested last month and accused of more than a decade of abusing, threatening and coercing women and others, racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, forced labour, kidnapping, arson, bribery and obstruction of justice, among other crimes. It's important as ever to emphasise these are just allegations, but if they are made out and proven in a court of law, this supports the absence of emotional empathy exhibited by P Diddy, which we have identified in other behaviours, which I explained in a series analysing what he is before all of these allegations came to the fore. A federal indictment claims some of Combs' parties, known as freak-offs, involved days-long sexual activity with sex workers and others who were given a variety of controlled substances to keep them obedient and compliant. Assertion of control, absence of emotional empathy, lack of accountability. It was a secret that everyone knew about what was going on with regard to these parties and some of the things that happened. There was a pattern in practice, custom of behaviour that went on for many, many years. Sustained period of time with regard to the behaviours. The modus operandi of how it went down was pretty much the same for many, many years. It typically included people identified and specifically invited to certain venues and parties. Identification of vulnerable victims. When they showed up, they were given a specific drink. They were made to drink it. Assertion of control. If they didn't drink it, they would many times be kicked out of the party. Nullification of threat to control. And a lot of these folks would drink this drink that was provided to them, and literally could not remember hardly anything that happened thereafter, and the next morning woke up dishevelled, injured, confused, scared, ashamed, full of guilt, and wondering what in the heck had happened to them. Some of them, of course, have a clear memory about what happened, but just literally could not stop it from happening. It's incredibly egregious, especially with regard to those that were minors at the time this happened. And it's my view that if you were around, and you were there, and you were watching this, and in some way participated in this, you're complicit. Busby revealed in a different press conference last week that 25 of the 120 Combs accusers were minors at the time of the alleged incidents occurring, with the youngest being just 9 years old. The attorney also said last week that more names will be implicated in the forthcoming lawsuits, some of which will shock the public. There is a long list of people. I have no doubt that there are people right now who know that they were somehow involved in this, who are now scrubbing their social media, who are searching their memories, who are deleting their texts, probably deleting pictures, and trying to delete themselves from this. We know who they are, or we will find out who they are. This is not something that's going to happen overnight, but I think we are at the tip of the iceberg here. Now, for some 12,000 calls to come forward in 24 hours, as I've mentioned before, some of these will be chancers and opportunists, but the bulk of them are likely to have claims that are borne out by the evidence. And this bears testament to not only the fact that there are others involved in this, but also the extensive reach of P Diddy, in that he has done this again and again and again. For so many people to come forward and allege that they have been the victim of abuse from him and others demonstrates a callous and repeated disregard for those individuals, underpinning his total absence of emotional empathy, the sense of entitlement to treat people like objects which are there subconsciously to cater to the prime aims, which consciously are there for him just to use as he sees fit, for him to abuse and to encourage others to abuse them also, to treat those people like chattels that are be utilised for the sexual gratification of P Diddy and his associates. This sheer number demonstrates the extent to which P Diddy has allegedly gone about this behaviour again and again and again. It demonstrates that this isn't a one-off as a consequence of an erosion of emotional empathy. This man had no emotional empathy to begin with. And it's something that we will return to repeatedly, because undoubtedly, as more information and evidence comes forward, it will enable us to understand more about the way that this particular narcissist has behaved, the way that he's acted in tandem with other narcissists, the way that he has affected non-narcissists to behave in a way which has eroded their emotional empathy so that they engage in abuse. And it provides us with a platform and many examples to help you understand why he and others have behaved this way, linked to the issue of narcissism. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.